Good morning, everyone. Am I audible at the back? Great. Yeah, I've had some throat issues, so I might not speak very loudly. But I thought I will not skip the first day. So, did you get the syllabus copy? All of you have that copy? So, I would expect you guys to stick this first page in your notes. That will work as a syllabus. This is the official UPSC syllabus, not made by me, by UPSC. So, I'd prefer if you stick it on your notes. How do you make your notes? On in your A4 sheets or some LIC SBI diary or something? A4 sheets, right? Okay, great. Also, if possible, loose sheets are the best. But then again, it might get lost because once you make notes on the loose sheets, they can then get it, bounded later on. But anyway, whatever floats your boat, I'd prefer still that anyway time I give you notes, you keep on sticking those notes on your books. Okay. So let's begin. So we are here to cover GS paper 2. Now GS paper 2 has 4 different aspects to it. The first one is, of course, polity and constitution. Then we have governance. Then we have social justice and IR. Okay. Our task here is to cover polity and constitution and governance. Normally, IR is fixed in paper 2. You have 50 marks questions from IR. That has been the standard over the course of so many years now. What normally fluctuates is the governance, social justice category. From polity and constitution also, you have fixed number of questions and marks normally every year. We'll come to that. Before we begin any discussion on any UPSC subject, whether polity or history or geography, whatever, there are certain things that we need to understand and 3 questions need to be asked. The very first question that you need to ask is, why are we studying this topic? Why have you come at 11 a.m.? You could be enjoying, partying, right? It's Valentine's week, right? You could have been meeting people, etc. But still you're wasting time here. It has to serve some purpose. This means polity and constitution is actually important for the exam. But just because I say so makes no sense because I teach the subject. How do you gauge whether some subject is important for UPSC? And how do you gauge whether a subject A is more important than subject B? A very simple tool is the PYQs. We go through PYQs, we find out if more questions are asked from that topic, the topic is automatically more important. If today you come to know that from polity and constitution, you will have only 1 question in your prelims, would you still put in 100 hours of effort into it? What do you say? Of course not. We are here not to be experts and compete with Rahul Gandhi for discussions on constitution, right? We are here to clear the exam. The purpose is to clear the exam. So, first things first. Okay, does this work? Next. This is the number of questions that have come from, these are questions, not marks, that have come from polity and constitution in the prelims exam. Out of 100 questions, these are the number of questions that have come. So, you can see here, normally in any given year, you have around 15 to 20 questions from polity. That means around 30-35 marks, 240 marks from polity. You can see, especially from, I think, 2015 onwards, this becomes important here. Why? Because prior to this year, the CSAT marks were also added in your GS qualification. But post 2014, that is from 2015, your selection in the main exam depends only on your GS paper 1. Okay? This means whatever the cutoff, polity has a huge role to play, almost 1/3 of your cutoff. So initially the cutoff was very high, very high from UPSC standards. back in 2015 and 16. In fact, in 2016, the cutoff went as high as 116 marks. 116 out of 200, just to be very clear. Here also cutoff was roughly around 105 or 107 marks, something around this. In fact, we have come to see from this time onwards a dip in the cutoff in UPSC. 2018 and 19 were the first times when the cutoff came down below 100 marks, less than 50% marks required to clear the prelims exam. So much so that in the year 2023, the cutoff was just 75 marks. That's it. 75 out of 200. Okay. Then we have slightly stabilized. The cutoff last year was around 88 marks. Pretty reasonable. Still, the cutoff is way less than 100. Knowing cutoff is important. Why is it important? Because that helps you place your expectations right. When you take a mock test, when you practice questions, solve answers, you should have this understanding that 100%, 95% is not something to expect in UPSC. This is not your class 10, 12th exam. Everybody getting 98% marks, right? Have you seen the toppers of your 10th and 12th? 99.2%, 99.4%. And they still have that sad face that they lost 0.6% marks. Let them come to UPSC. 50% makes a topper here in the main exam, right? So I think knowing cutoff is important because it also helps you understand that your expectations need to be right. Clear? So right from day one, we need to understand 60-70% is our target. And then we can end up getting 50-60%. Clear? So we have to be very selective in our effort and be very logical in how we strengthen our dimensions in the examination. Okay, so that's one thing. Second thing that we should know, and every aspirant should know, and that should be your duty for the next few days. Every day when you come to the class, and if I am by chance late or you come early, please go through the syllabus over and over again. Okay? The next thing, the first question was why the subject is important. And second is the syllabus for UPSC. Okay? Now see, if you look at the syllabus of UPSC, the prelims part, it has not been clarified by the UPSC team. This is like a very lazy situation for a syllabus. They say, we'll ask questions on Indian polity. Firstly, my question is, what the hell is polity? You're here to study polity. So, can you please tell me what is meant by polity? You've come here to study polity, right? I hope you were told this. Or is it a surprise? No surprise. Please. Polity. Tell me. It's okay. No punishment. No penalty. I will not call your parents that you gave a wrong answer. Please feel free. Any guess? Somebody is saying something. Loudly if I can hear only that. Too afraid to make an error. Haji madam, want to say something? No, nothing. Okay. Don't worry. Since you paid full fees, you can sit and relax and enjoy. Polity simply means form of government. So when I say Indian polity, I am referring to Indian form of government. That's the meaning of polity. Form of government. On your sheet, can you write this point? Is it possible? Please write then. So Indian polity, the word polity means form of government. I hope you'll remember this now. Okay. and governance, constitution. They just throw this word that we have to study the entire constitution. Okay, so casual, I use a word constitution. Then they also expect us to know about the political system, Panchayati Raj. They have just mentioned this topic, Panchayati Raj. Interestingly, in the prelims exam, UPSC hardly asks questions from Panchayati Raj. In the last 15 years, they have asked maybe 5 questions from Panchayati Raj. So, but still mentioned in the topic. Though, Panchayati Raj is a very important topic for your mains exam. We'll come to that shortly. Then public policy and rights issues. This is the reference to, fundamental rights, DPSPs, duties, all those topics. But if you look at this syllabus, it clarifies nothing, absolutely nothing on what to expect. So the prelim syllabus is complete nonsense. But the main syllabus is slightly elaborate. That's when you get to understand what exactly do we need to cover. So let's come to the main syllabus. Firstly, the mains marks distribution. I hope you know the mains paper is of how many marks? 250 marks. Okay. Every mains paper is of 250 marks, right? Out of these are marks. Out of these 250 marks, around 100 plus marks questions are devoted to polity and constitution. Clear? 100 marks worth questions out of 250. I think for a single subject, that is very high. For most other subjects, this kind of contribution does not exist actually. Apart from ethics. Ethics has a full paper. But apart from ethics, no other subject has this much of contribution. Okay? So, 100 plus marks is the contribution to a main exam. Now, let's look at the syllabus. We'll go through it in slightly more detailed fashion. Firstly, we have Indian Constitution, historical underpinnings, evolution, features, amendment, significant provisions, and basic structure. So, historical underpinnings, how this rulebook came into being. Have you covered modern India? History is covered. Have you covered the various charter acts and council acts and Government of India acts? Those were what are referred to as the historical underpinnings and evolution. Okay. So that's how our constitution came into being. All those charter acts, the council acts, etc., which you already are aware of and are experts on, I'm sure. I'll just be covering a small part, that is 1946 and beyond. From the time of the formation of Constituent Assembly, how did we actually frame and how do we discuss this constitution and how did we arrive at this final rule book? Okay. Sometimes UPSC does ask prelims based questions on such factual information as to who was the draftsman of the Constituent Assembly, etc. Okay. Are you aware of this word called Constituent Assembly? What is the meaning of this word? There is a word, Constituent Assembly. And then there is a word called Legislative Assembly. Two different words. Clearly, spellings are different. What is the meaning of Constituent Assembly? Loudly, sir. MLCs. That is council. Separate. Constituent Assembly is a body whose task is to frame the constitution. That is the purpose of Constituent Assembly. Are you clear? In every country, whenever they want to frame their constitution, they set up a body which is called Constituent Assembly. Are we clear? Legislative Assembly is a parliamentary body whose task is to make laws on a daily basis. Separate bodies. Are we clear? That's the Meaning of this word, Constituent Assembly. Okay. Like, we had till 2019, Jammu and Kashmir, Jammu and Kashmir, it had a separate constitution. Of course, within the framework of Indian constitution, it had its own constitution, which no longer is there. So to frame that constitution also, a separate body was formed. That body was called? Excellent. Clear? So we'll discuss all those things. Then, features. That is important. Our Indian constitution has certain very important features like, it is secular in nature. Okay. It is democratic in nature. Democracy. It's republic in nature. We follow a parliamentary form of government. All these things. Then, amendments. What is amendment? Modifications, changes, addition, variation, removing things. So the beauty of our Indian constitution is that it allows for amendments. Okay. And so far, how many amendments have we made? Any idea? One not? 6. Very good. We have made so far 106 changes. The last one was the women's reservation in the Lok Sabha and the Vidhan Sabha, the assembly. 106 changes have been made in the last 76 years now. If you look at some other countries, for example, USA. In USA, their constitution was formed in 1789. From 1789 till date, they have made 27 changes only. And the first 10 changes were made in 1791 itself. So since that, they have just made handful of changes. We have made 106 changes, but don't worry, all these changes are not important. Most of them are cosmetic changes. For example, there's a state called Odisha. Its spelling was changed a few years back into Odisha, O-D-I-S-H-A, from O-R-I-S-S-A. Now, also in Odisha, they speak a language called Odia. The spelling of that language was O-R-I-Y-A. So they changed the spelling also to O-D-I-A. Now, in our constitution, there is a place called schedules. In one such place, all the official languages are mentioned. Okay. In that place, Odia was also mentioned. But the old spelling was mentioned. O-R-I-Y-A. Now we have to make a new spelling. O-D-I-A. Now to change that spelling also, we had to pass an amendment. 96th Amendment Act. So a lot of these changes are cosmetic in nature. You don't have to worry about all these 106 changes. Some are important, which I'll be telling you. Most are not important. Are they clear? Okay. Then, very beautifully put, significant provisions. Provisions meaning the articles. So our constitution has around 470 articles. Not all are important. Only few are important. So, significant provisions only. And then, something called basic structure. We just saw we can make amendments. Yes or no? My point is, amendments, as you said, means changes, modifications, adding something, removing something. Can we change the democratic nature of Indian constitution and make India into a monarchy? But changes are allowed. Not all changes are allowed. We can't change the essential values of our constitution, right? Those things are called basic structure, right? So we'll see how the basic structure concept came into picture. What was the problem, need, reason, etc. The very famous, I'm sure you're aware, case 1 in the Bharati judgment, the priest from Kerala. So all these things we'll be discussing under basic structure. Then the next part, functions and responsibilities of the union and the states. What are the functions? What are the responsibilities given to union, given to states? And very important, please star mark this. Issues and challenges pertaining to what? Federal structure. And my question to you is, what the hell is this federal structure? Tell me. Division of government. Okay. Any other change in that? Division of powers between center and states. Fair. So it actually refers to any form of government which is characterized by two levels of power, at the central level or the state level. Clear? That is the federal. Federal. You can mention division of power. Union states. That is a reference to federal structure. And in fact, issues and challenges, most of the problems that we face in our country are because of this only. Division of power. Look at Didi from West Bengal going crazy, right? She's in Delhi fighting her own case in the court with no legal training whatsoever. And when Amit Shah had gone to West Bengal to campaign, Didi made an official statement that Amit Shah ji, you can come out of your hotel only because I am allowing it. Threat to the Home Minister. Because state government controls police. That's the beauty of this. So police can be misused against anyone. And these issues happen frequently. Right now, recently, we had the 16 Finance Commission recommendations. And you will see allocation of fund, etc. So states always have some problems. And some states in particular have too many problems. 4 corners. Punjab, West Bengal, Kerala, Tamil Nadu. They always have some problem with the center. They want autonomy, independence. Within the country itself, independence. Center wants control, and the tussle continues. And these problems, they increase drastically if the ruling party at center is different from ruling party in states. You won't hear any trouble between Andhra Pradesh and center, between UP and center, between Maharashtra and center. Same ruling party, no problem. All troubles from West Bengal, Tamil Nadu, sometimes Telangana, but Telangana CM, the great footballer, right? I mean, you know very well, right? His football skills, I'm sure you have seen that. Now, Telangana also has a concern. They depend a lot on trade, commerce, industries. Center gives funds. So they want to have that relationship, nice relationship. Some states don't care about all this. So they go out on full-fledged war with the center. So the issues come up. And the issues, of course, are of no concern to us. But UPSC asks questions from these issues. And that's why they are important. Are you clear? So this topic is very important. Please expect one question from it in the main exam. And the next one also. Star mark this, extremely important. In the last 12 years, except 2 years, in every year, one question was asked from this topic. And the topic is devolution of powers and finances up to what level? What is meant by local level? What is local level? Panchayats and municipalities. That is a reference to local levels. Are we clear? So when we say local level, we refer to panchayats and municipalities. One question in your main exam, please be assured, will be asked from this topic. Are we clear? Okay. And challenges therein. Local levels have a lot of challenges and concerns. Lack of funds is one challenge. Caste issues in the rural areas is a challenge. Have you heard of this term called Panchayat Pati? Panchayat Pati does not mean the Pati of entire Panchayat. That's not the reference. If a woman is an elected member of Panchayat, her husband goes and sits in the meetings. And that person is called Panchayat Pati, based on wife's performance. If wife is a Sarpanch, he is called a Sarpanch Pati. If wife is a mayor member of ward member, he is called a Panchayat Pati. But that is wrong, right? I mean, you have not been elected. Imagine Narendra Modi's, Rahul, okay. Imagine Amit Shah's wife comes and sits in the Home Ministry instead of Amit Shah. Will that work? No, right? Same thing. Now, what can we do? Our leaders they want to remain single for life. Valentine's Day is difficult for them. Anyway, my point is, do you think it is fair that Amit Shah's wife comes and sits in Home Ministry? We have not voted for his wife. We voted for him. Right? Same way. People of the area voted for the woman to come and sit in the meeting. Reservation for women has a purpose, upliftment, making them assertive, financially independent, empowerment, etc. If the husband goes and sits in the meeting, the entire purpose is lost. So that's also a challenge. There are various challenges for Panchayat which we'll have to cover under this topic. Okay? Then, separation of powers between various organs. So we have 3 organs, I hope you're aware. What are those 3 organs? LENJ, legislature, executive and judiciary. This is also an important topic. Under this topic, separation of powers, comes an extension of a topic from judiciary that is called activism. Okay? So, you can just write below that example. Judicial activism. We'll discuss what this means actually, what is the meaning of activism later on. Done. And then redressal mechanisms and institutions. Under the same judicial activism, there is also a topic called PIL. What is PIL? Public interest litigation. Litigation means court case. When we file a court case, we call it litigation. So court cases filed in the interest of public, that's called PIL. We initially, before 1980s, we did not allow PILs. So the logic was that, let's say, if your house gets robbed, then who should go and complain to the police? Your neighbor, somebody in Assam, or you? We ourselves, right? So this is called locus standi or locus standi, meaning only affected person can go to court. If you are not affected, then why should you go to court? But this does not always work. What if the affected person cannot go to court? What if he or she does not have resources? What if he or she does not have the knowledge, expertise, right? Then somebody else can go to court on your behalf. That is called PIL, where NGOs and other groups file court cases on somebody else's behalf in the interest of public. So we allow for this thing. A lot of countries don't allow this. In USA also, not allowed so easily. Okay, we allow this. Anyway, then the parliament and the state legislatures, their structure, their functions, their conduct of business, powers and privileges and issues arising out of them. So this is a slightly larger topic in terms of coverage, very easy but very large because, a lot of things happen in the parliament. Of course, right now you only see fighting happening in the parliament. But other things also take place in the parliament like discussions, etc. How are discussions done? How are members elected? who is the speaker, who is the presiding officer, what powers does he or she have. All these things are to be covered here. On and off, UPSC keeps on asking questions from this topic also. Not very frequently, but it does. Okay. And then structure, organization and functioning of the executive and the judiciary. Nowadays, this topic has become very important for prelims especially. 1 or 2 questions from judiciary are being asked every year in the prelims exam. Every year. So this topic is also important for both mains and prelims. Then the ministries and departments, etc. Okay. Now, in our country, every 5 years, we have this very interesting phenomena called elections, right? Where people contest and then they campaign and they come and explain to you on what was done in the last 5 years, what they are planning to do. And based on that, you look at the person, their profile, the development that they have done, and then go and cast your vote in the name of in the name of development, right? So that is called election. Now, elections have to be governed through laws on how to vote, who can vote, how to contest, when to vote, what is the procedure, all these things. For that, we have 2 laws in the country. Those 2 laws are called RPA. One law is of 1950, the other one is of 1951. 2 laws. So they are popularly referred to as RPA, Representation of People's Act. Extremely important in the last 7 years, except 1 year. 1 question from RPA asked every year, and from one part of RPA only, especially RPA 51. There is one topic called disqualification of people from contesting elections. From that topic only, 6 questions last 7 years. That's a huge number, right? So, see, why I'm telling this to you right now itself is you have to understand what topics are more important, what has to be mugged up by heart, clear? So that if a question comes, you're not left wanting in that area. So important. Then, appointment to various constitutional posts, like we'll be covering bodies like ECI, Finance Commission, bodies like NCSC, NCST, NCBC, etc. You know ECI, Election Commission of India, FC, Finance Commission, NCSC, National Commission for Scheduled Castes, Scheduled Tribes, Backward Classes, so on and so forth. We'll be covering them one by one when the time comes. Their powers, their functions and responsibilities of such bodies. Okay. Then statutory, regulatory and various quasi or quasi, both pronunciations are correct, quasi-judicial bodies. What is meant by statutory? Statutory comes from the word statute. What is meant by statute? Statute simply means law. That's it. That's the meaning of statute. Law. You want to say things simply? Law. You want to impress someone? Statute. Confuse them. That's the only difference. So statutory means legal bodies. Bodies created by Parliament. Clear? We won't be covering these here actually. We'll be covering all these bodies in governance. You know, bodies like CBI, not CBI, CVC, Lokpal, etc. under NHRC, under governance. Here, we'll be covering this. Quasi-judicial, Quasi means semi. Like India is a quasi-federal country, partially federal. So we have quasi-judicial bodies also. Bodies which look like judiciary, but are not exactly judiciary. A very good example of such bodies is what? Tribunals. Right? Tribunals is an example of such a body which is partially judicial in nature. More details on what is the difference later on. Are we clear? Any doubt? Dispute? Issue, concern? This is the syllabus for polity and constitution. Governance syllabus, when we start governance later on. And all references then. Okay. Now, you can, in your notes, also write. So, this is UPSC syllabus. I'm just going to brief on what exactly should we be following for the exam. So, do one thing. Write syllabus. Leave the first page blank. You have to stick this in. Don't keep this as loose sheets, because if you keep it as loose sheet, it will be lost within 10-15 days. So stick it in your notes. Clear? Very simple process. Go to market, purchase Fevistick and all. Right? I hope it is not that costly. Or you can collectively contribute and purchase. Stick it. Okay. Great. Now, first thing to understand is constitution. Again, not all the articles. I will tell you which provisions are important. We will follow those only. Second is important statutes or laws. The country has hundreds of laws. Not all laws are important. Only few of them are important. We'll only follow those laws. You'll have to write this in your notes. Start writing. Third is court verdicts, meaning judgments. Directions. Hear me out first. Sometimes courts also give directions, and that also become important for the exam. And even observations. Supreme Court sometimes makes an observation about something, and UPSC has asked a question on that observation also. Clear? Beyond that, important executive, meaning government, notifications. So, government notifications, they're also important. Sometimes, depending on what notification has been released. Done? One more. Conventions. What is meant by convention? Tell me. Have you heard of this word called convention? Custom. Custom? Tradition? Right? It's a custom that we touch our elders' feet. Is it mentioned in some law somewhere? In some article? That you have to touch the feet of elders? Of course not. Just a tradition. Similarly, In our political structure also, a lot of things are customs. That's how things are being done in the country. I'll give you a simple example. There's a post called governor. You know governors? Every state has a governor. Now, if you look at the constitution, on the qualification to be a governor, it is who can be a governor. So, there is an article called Article 157, which says that if you want to be a governor, two qualifications. You need to be a citizen of India and your age should be 35 or above. That's it. No other qualification. But I'll tell you something very interesting. Please have a look at the governor of your state, Telangana, Andhra Pradesh, or any state for that matter. That governor is not from your state. He or she is always an outsider. And this is not mentioned anywhere. No article, no law, no government order. This is called convention, a practice. And why is this a practice? So that the governor, since he's an outsider, he has no interest in local politics. And he or she will not come into conflict with the chief minister. Clear? So we appoint outsiders as governors. And this practice is so strong that it has always been the case that only outsiders are appointed as governors. This convention has never ever been broken except once. In 1967, Venkat Vishwanath was made the governor of Kerala and he was born in Kerala. But even then, he was an IAS officer who had served in Madhya Pradesh his entire life. But still, if you're looking at somebody born in the state, this is an exception. This is called convention. Conventions are customary ways of doing things which have the same force as that of law. They are not laws, but they are very strictly followed. Clear? I'll give you a simple example of it. Money bills? If not, no problem. There is a kind of bill called money bill. Okay? And you can find this anywhere, that money bills are always introduced by ministers. That's a statement made. This fact is not mentioned anywhere. But in 99% cases, money bills are introduced by ministers only. Convention. A custom. Are you clear? Write conventions, make a colon, and write besides that. Traditional ways of doing things, which have the same force as that of law. Okay. Example, outsiders as governors. Right there. Below. Example, outsiders appointed as governors. All okay? So these are things that we need to cover as far as our exam is concerned. So 2 questions have been answered. And the first one was with respect to why the subject is important. And second one, of course, is the syllabus. A third thing is that magical book list. That, sir, please tell us that book list. And if you could study that, and every question came from that book list only. I wish there was some book list like this, but still, there are certain books that should we follow, should we not follow kind of situation.